Is everyone else ready? I'm ready. You guys good? All right, so this talk is going past the wire, leveraging social engineering in physical security assessments. Just to kind of get a quick survey of the room, raise your hands if you're blue team. Okay, couple. Red team, raise your hand. All right, cool. So my goal here is if you are blue team, you kind of see some tips and things that I do when I'm going out and performing these assessments, and hopefully can kind of give you some ideas of things to look out for. Excuse me. And if you're red team, maybe get an understanding of some things I do that if you're not doing, you can incorporate or kind of just see the way someone else does it. So just a quick about me slide. My name is Stephanie, and I also go by Snow. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I've lived there for about 3 years now. I won the black badge for the social engineering capture the flag at DEF CON a few years ago. And in my free time, I like to do special effects makeup and go to theme parks and play board games. My company is Snowfensive. We primarily focus on offensive security services. Physical security is one of the big ones that we're doing right now. I actually have JC in the back. He's one of my team members. He just did 3 physical security assessments in 3 different countries in the last 2 weeks. So he's been busy. He got in at 4 a.m. So he's still awake, which is surprising me. But yeah, we focus a lot on physical security. So this talk, I chose to do this talk kind of out of a pet peeve. When I started talking to other pen testers, I noticed that when they say they do physical security assessments, what they're doing is they're going out, getting on site, and plugging in a box to the network and leaving. That's it. They're not testing the actual physical security of the building. They're not testing the employees. And really what the client is left with at the end of the day is a pen test report. If that's what you want, I could ship you a laptop and do everything remotely. So I really think physical security should be focused on the building and the employees. All right, so for the agenda, I'm going to be going over OSINT, or you might hear it called OSINT, OSI. It's open source intelligence. It's going out, finding things online through open sources like Google, social media, even things like blogs and forums. Maybe talking about pretext development, things that you should keep in mind. Recon, so actually going out before you perform the assessment and what to look for. The actual attacks I do when I'm on site, and then wrap it up with training. So when I'm doing open source intelligence, I'm typically looking at 3 domains. I'm looking for employees. The reason why I'm doing that is because it's who I want to impersonate. So I want to make sure I blend into the environment. I want to see their trappings. And what I mean by that is their dress code. If they have badges, do they all wear them at the hip on a clip? Do they wear it off a lanyard? If they have lanyards, does everyone bring their own in, or is it a company lanyard? Anything like that that really gives as much detail so I don't stand out. I blend in well. I look at the company location. I try to see if they have access control systems in place, look to see if they have guards, cameras, nearby restaurants, which I'm going to get into stories about, floor plans, and also event calendars. And then if I'm not pretending to be an employee, I'm typically pretending to be a vendor. So just like employees, I'm trying to see what specific vendors they're using, if I can get the names of the company, maybe contact names. Do they have uniforms? Do they wear badges? Try to make things like business cards, anything that makes me look legit. So social media is typically the first stop I do when I'm doing OSINT. Facebook is one of them. A lot of people don't know this, but you can actually put queries into Facebook. So one of the ones I use a lot is people who work at my target company. And it'll pull up a list of everyone who says they work for this company. I like to focus on new people and interns, typically because they haven't had the best training. They're the ones that are most likely to put out company-sensitive or information online. So let's take this girl for an example. So the first couple pictures she posted to her Facebook account. The first picture of trappings, you kind of see what everyone's wearing and know how I would want to blend into the environment. The second one's more of my favorite picture she put out there. It's actually a shot looking into the building. This is really cool because if I were to show up at the building, I know exactly what it looks like. I don't have to walk in, kind of look around. It makes me stand out. I'll know, okay, I'm probably going to go head up right those stairs. I'm not going to, look for any building maps, anything like that. In the first picture, she tagged a handful of people that were in the picture, so I kind of used that. And I went to look through their pictures where I found the next two ones. And it's really cool to see in this one. In the RFID one, you could see the thick HID clamshell badges in use. But in the other one, you see another badge, a picture badge. So it's important to know that some companies will have two different style badges. So the more information you can find during OSINT, the better. A lot of companies have anti-tailgating policies, which are really cool, but it's dependent on two things. The first thing is that the employees actually follow this procedure. They actually will check the badge behind them like the one here on Google. And then the second thing is they will actually inspect the badge. Does anyone here work at Google? No one? Does anybody know what's cool about this Google badge? No one? This whole badge is actually a hologram, the whole thing. So that's something you can't really tell during OSINT. It might just look like a crappy badge. But it's really special, and that's something you can't find during OSINT. It's something you'd have to see on site. So, excuse me. So it's really important to pay attention to things like that. I had a client who was based out of downtown LA, and I was performing a physical security assessment for them. And during the OSINT phase, I found a lot of employees who had badges online, which is perfect for me. I used my badge printer, made out a copy, it looked legit, showed up on site. Everyone's badges they wore them at the hip, were all turned around so you could just see the white, which was really odd to me, but I just turned mine around so you could see the white back of the badge. And it worked fine. And so later I asked my client, why is everybody's badges turned around? He explained that he knew that they had a lot of employees posting pictures on social media, and instead of telling the employees not to do that or have some kind of policy, he just told them to all turn it around, which made my job a lot easier because I just needed a white badge and I was in. All right, floor plans are really cool. So if the target company is like in a shared building, multi-tenants, a lot of times if different floors in the building are for rent, they might be on LoopNet, and this is something I use a lot. And an example of it. So they'll have actual floor plans. It is important to know that only the structure of the floor plan is legit. So things like the elevator shafts and the stairway wells and the bathrooms are going to be there, but different clients can come in and remodel, add walls, add buildings, or add cubicles, things like that. But knowing once I get off the elevator, if I go left, there's a bathroom right there, that could help me, especially if someone's kind of suspicious right there. I could just duck into the bathroom really fast. They also have descriptions, which is really helpful. So I know that this building had 24/7 security, they had cameras and card key entry systems. Not only that, they also said who else was in the building. So if I wanted to show up on site and maybe ask the receptionist to print off my resume, I can just say I'm having an interview with one of these other companies, and it looks like I should be there and I know who's in the building. Some companies have calendars online, whether it's like this one, for example, with a hospital. So they'll have things where people can sign up and take different trainings, different classes, things like that. Or they might have internal calendars, so Hot Dog Tuesdays or whatever. Things like this is really helpful. For a hospital I was at, they have a diabetes class on Tuesday at 7. And so I just signed up for it online, told them I was there. They said, okay, go to the second floor. Nobody walked me there. Nobody cared. They just let me go, and I was free to get past security and really have access to everything on the 7th floor. Watering holes. So a cool thing on Google, you could type in your target address, and you hit nearby, and it gives you a list of different restaurants excuse me, that are nearby. I like to go to these different places for a handful of reasons. I like to do it during recon to try to capture cards with my badge cloner. And the second reason is I like to overhear small talk. So I can hear, current office drama. One time I heard that the CFO was at a conference, so I was able to use that to my advantage, go to the receptionist, explain that, hey, I know Bob's out of town, I just need to leave these documents on his desk. She knew I knew Bob and that he was out of town, and she let me in. So really just trying to hear as much information over small talk. All right, and I have a video now. We don't have sound. It's a 1 and 30-second clip, so I'm going to ask you guys what you see afterwards on this video. Oh, I do have sound. Thank you, Microsoft. So this is one of the things I like to do is look on YouTube for HR, recruiting clips, life of interns. So question for you guys, just yell them out. What were some of the things that you saw in that video? Sorry? Dress codes? Badges? Sorry? A lot of windows, yeah. Anything else? Badge system. This guy got it all. Yeah. Standardized systems. Yep, everyone has the same devices. So I pulled out some stills from the video, so I'm going to go over what I found. Close-up of the badge. Very clear, very easy to replicate. You see that she is using a company lanyard, but throughout the video you see that's not always the case. But again, close-up of the badge, that's not going to be hard to impersonate. Someone else mentioned this one, the access control system at the front. What do you guys see in this one? Reception. Yep, you get a view into the front. There's also a camera. Anything different about this one? It's kind of hard to see. His badge on his pants. Not only that, it's a different color. So that's important to know, depending on who you're impersonating, if you're impersonating an employee, to know what the different colors mean. This one's just kind of fun. You know they have a KVM rather than a crash cart, kind of nice, easy access. I don't know why this one cracked me up. They're a Windows shop, but they're using Chrome. It's kind of funny. But yeah, you get a look into what they're using, their calendars, all that good stuff. So again, going back to YouTube, lots of information you can find. Typically, though, it's more for bigger businesses, small, medium businesses. You won't see as many recruiting videos or intern videos, but you can get a lot of information. Just like employees, I try to find vendors. Here's just a quick Google Dork that I use when I'm looking for vendors. Once I actually find them, I see what their dress code are. Sometimes they'll have things like if they work certain hours. The more information, the better I can do to impersonate them. All right, pretexting. A pretext is who you're pretending to be when you go on site. It's your backstory. It's why you're there, really what you're going after. The more work you put into your pretext, typically the more confident you'll feel. So the biggest thing with pretext, do not impersonate law enforcement, doctors, or lawyers. Totally illegal, do not do it. Some states have different laws about people you can and can't impersonate. If you're kind of in a hurry situation, contact a lawyer from that state just to be sure, but those are very important to know. Scope limitations. Sometimes we will have clients who say, okay, you could be anyone external, vendors, non-vendors, whoever, but you just can't pretend to be anyone internal. So working out stuff like that ahead of time with your client, just to make sure everyone's on the same page and actually document your pretext. Pretext reuse. I'm going to get into a story about that next, about how it has burned me in the past. And then appearance. Once you figure out who you want to be, make sure you look legit. You know what to wear. Transportation. A janitor is not going to show up in a car service. I mean, if you're pretending to be someone high up in the company, sure. If you're pretending to be some type of a janitor company or someone like that, spend the extra money and get a really cool decal or even a magnet one. Go out and rent a U-Haul van, and you look so much more legit. Badges and business cards, even if you can't find it online, most of the time people don't know their vendors' business cards, but that adds so much more credibility if you have things like that. Clipboards and documents, I'll get into with a story as well, but a clipboard is one of my favorite things to have. It just adds so much more credibility to why you're there. People think if you have a clipboard, you know what you're doing, you're writing things down. I don't know why, but it's worked very well for me. Excuse me. So this kind of story is twofold. The first one is pretext reuse. I had a client based out of the Midwest, and they had 16 locations they wanted me to go to in like 14 days. So it was a lot. But this client also limited my pretext to only one thing. I had the same story for every location they went to. It worked amazing for the first 5 locations. Well, on the 5th one, you could tell she was kind of suspicious, like, this doesn't really make sense, and I haven't verified who you are, why you're here, but she still gave me everything I asked for. But she called ahead to the 6th location and kind of said, hey, this person's coming on site. I don't know if it's legit. You might want to check out before you probably let her on site because you know you're next on her list. So as they're talking, and this girl's calling her IT manager, trying to verify who I am and if I should be there, I show up on site. She asked me just to take a seat in the lobby, and so I did. 10 minutes later, her and 2 police officers come around the corner. I didn't even have the chance to explain myself or who I was. So that's how password reuse can burn you. But the other thing with that is I had a get out of jail free card, right? I had the one page saying I should be there and points of contacts. The police were kind of confused. One cop thought it was awesome. He's like, there's no way you do this for a living. The other one was like, yeah, you're full of shit. So the one who didn't believe me, he's looking over this letter like, this is stupid. Like, I don't understand this. He didn't even read it all. So that's why I am a big believer that the get out of jail free card, it should stay in Monopoly. Like, most of the time people don't understand it. So now what I do is I actually carry the whole scope, the statement of work, and I make sure that the scope has everything laid out very clear. That way it's easier for people to understand. So password reuse is bad, and get out of jail free card doesn't always work. With pretexting, it's important to be flexible. I know building a really good pretext and being confident is awesome, but sometimes things don't always go to plan. I had a client who had just built their European headquarters in Amsterdam, and I went out there to test their new facility. And when I got on site, I was really cocky. I had my pretext ready. I was just kind of doing recon really fast. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to get in, do my goals, get out. I get there, and everything I wanted to do for my pretext didn't make sense. It was a pain in the butt. They had so much more security than I thought they did. So I had to kind of go back to my hotel and reevaluate everything. I knew the pretext I was going to use, there was no way it was going to work. So I ended up changing it to, I said that I was from their America location, and that was an investment relations manager. And I was explaining how there are new potential investors in the area. They wanted to do a meeting at the location, kind of get a feel for the location and ask some questions. But before I had these people come out, I wanted to go and be familiar with the location. So knowing that money was on the line, of course they let me in. They gave me a tour of the location. I went on to say these investors have been burned in the past and they wanted to make sure that the physical security of the building was good. So what's your issues? He showed me all of the issues, how he currently had and how he planned on changing it, which I was able to use to my advantage and get in later that night. But with password or pretext, it's important to be flexible. It is good to have a really good concrete pretext, but sometimes they don't work out depending on the situation. All right, reconnaissance. This is very helpful when you can't find a lot of information during OSINT. And sometimes it's important to do a full day of recon. I like to do it in the daytime when everyone's there and also at nighttime when people are gone, just to kind of get a observation of the environment. And when I'm doing recon, I typically look in 3 areas. The first one is the perimeter. I'll do a walk around to see if I can find things like different entrances. Is there an employee entrance only that's maybe badge protected that could still be open 24/7? Or is there just like public entrances that have certain building operating times? Because if I know that building closes at 8, I want to try to sneak in at 7:55 and hide somewhere until the doors actually lock. So at least I'm inside. I'll look for things like access control systems, loading docks. It's really beneficial if they're actually getting a delivery, because a lot of times they leave that unlocked. And I'm able to slip right in. Depending on the client in the building, sometimes I'm able to do interior recon. Something like a hospital where you can just go in and out. If it's like a suite in a really big building, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. But if you can do interior recon, that's something to do. And then nearby cafes, during OSINT, I try to make a list of the ones I want to visit, and then I'll actually go visit them. Bring my badge reader, try to capture cards, and listen to small talk. Excuse me. Yes. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm good, thanks. So attack risk chart. So now I'm going to be going into the things I actually do when I'm on site. So I talked about OSINT, pretext, and recon. So these are things coming up that I actually do when I go on site. I try to label everything low, medium, high. Low is something, if I get caught, I can talk my way out of or just walk away from. Medium, kind of risky. Maybe I'm asking an employee something and they're getting suspicious. High is like, if I get caught, my cover is blown. That's something like picking a lock and someone walks in and I'm just standing there, right? So that's how I break everything out. Tailgating and piggybacking. Does anyone know the difference? Difference between tailgating and piggybacking? No? There's a difference. A lot of people don't know that. They use the term interchangeably.
Tailgating, you're authorized, but you follow in piggybacking, you're not authorized. Or you have your arm full and be like, hey, can you go?
Yep, so tailgating is, or piggybacking is they're aware, right? So there is a difference, and it's just really funny to see a lot of people just use both terms and don't know that there is a difference. So that is something that I do when I'm on site. I actually had a client who knew that I was following her. I was piggybacking her, right? And you could tell she was suspicious, but she didn't know what to say. And that's the benefit of social engineering. People are so nice, they're so friendly, and even if they are suspicious, like, they don't know how to stop you or correct you, like, they don't know what words to say. So she saw me, she let me and just kind of looked, but didn't say anything. So I went and I did my first pass, got through a handful of goals. When I came back later in the day, I was talking to the receptionist, having her open up a USB for me, and right behind I saw a glass door to a conference center. The lady that saw me and was suspicious was sitting there talking with security, giving them a full description of me as I'm standing right there like 20 feet away from them. So I got out as fast as I could. But again, people are suspicious and they don't always know to say anything. Document management is something I do. This is more of when theft isn't in scope. So I'll look for sensitive documents, maybe PII, my clients, patients or clients' information, and I'll try to take pictures of them. A lot of times we wear body cams, but still sometimes having a clear shot is helpful. And then these are the places I look for them. Excuse me. A lot of times people are lazy and they leave things on printers. So it's pretty cool to kind of scour that area and see what you can find. Yeah. Yeah, they're pay ranked. Yeah, that's a good one. My favorite is when shred bins are on wheels. So JC and I were doing a physical a handful of months back, and it was really convenient because it was on wheels. I just dragged it into one of the offices. He was able to pick the lock. I just locked the door and just let him do his thing while I did other things. So just kind of convenient. Elicitation, which is talking to people and trying to get information out of them. I try to either get information from them verbally or ask them to perform a task for me. So the favorite thing is, can you please open up my USB and print a file, whether it's directions or resume, something like that. And then I will ask them, try to actually ask them things about their physical building or company sensitive information and kind of going into that. I do a lot of physical security assessments at hospitals. My favorite pretext is that I'm a HIPAA auditor. No one wants to tell a HIPAA auditor nowhere to go away. Like, they want to give you everything you ask for. So when I do this, I have my badge, my business cards of who I'm pretending to be. I have my clipboard. I actually have a legit form with real HIPAA questions, things like, about the physical security, where are cameras in place, things like that. So I actually don't have to go look around. I'm asking people, okay, where do you keep your EPHI? If you have to destroy it, what do you do? One of the times I asked someone, if you have to destroy it, what do you do? She's like, oh, we just take it down to IT. She actually had a hard drive on her desk. She's like, yeah, I actually have to go take this down. Oh, let me help you with that. So I got a whole thing. But again, having forms, having questions, this is an excellent pretext if you're working with a hospital. RFID cloning. This is something that we use a lot. Excuse me. We use Proxmire or Fiddler, and then we also use, I don't know if anyone's familiar with Bishop Fox Tastic, anyone? Good handful of you. So we have something very similar. We added some really cool upgrades. We have a Bluetooth module, which I think their new one might have that, but it's really cool because the second we capture cards, it goes right to our phone. We get to see it. So it's really instant feedback. Another cool thing is we added a vibration motor from like an old cell phone. So when we pick up cards too, we kind of get just a buzz so we know we got it. Excuse me. Tips for this. Get as many cards as you can during recon. Capture as many so you can write as many, try them later. It's different people have different levels of access. So maybe you might be able to get in through the front door with a standard code. Some employees still can't get further into the building. So having as many options is important. And then if you have these cards, make sure you keep them away from your reader, or you'll be like me walking down the hall with no way around and wondering why my reader's going off, because it's reading my cards. But yeah, RFID cloning is something big that we do a lot, and that really helps us get further on site. USB drops. Where do you not put USBs when you're doing USB drops? Anyone? I heard something. No? Parking lots. Everyone that says that you do USB drops says they put them in parking lots. That is such a bad mistake. What if your client's patients or their clients get it? Are they in scope? No. So it's important to put them in places that employees only are at. So I like to leave them like actually on someone's desk. If I will bring like white envelopes, and if I'm walking by an office, I'll see the name on the office, I'll write their name on it. And then naming it something really fun that people want to see. I think Hayden mentioned something about payroll. But if you name the file on the USB something juicy like this, like everyone's going to want to see that. So when we do our USBs, we have a file that looks like a PDF, but it's really executable, and it just calls in and checks into our server. So it's proof that they're opening it, right? When they open it, they get this error. So they're like, oh, it's not working. Let me try another computer. So it's really fun to see the same USB go from computer to computer, like people trying to open it. And once they do open it, we get this really cool feedback every time, just kind of showing us. it was opened, what specific USB it opened, and all that good stuff. All right, network port security. I know I kind of talked about at the beginning how a lot of companies like to just go in and plug in a box and leave. I'm not saying not do that. I'm just saying it shouldn't be the focus of your test. You still should try to see if you can gain network access, right? So when I do that, I just do like a quick network ping sweep scan, excuse me. And a lot of times I get away with this in conference rooms. They'll have computers or even their phone lines, things where I can just get onto the network with, and a lot of people don't lock their conference room doors. So that's my favorite place to get onto the network. Non-destructive entry. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here just because there's a lot of cool videos. Deviant actually recently did one for a SANS webcast, I believe it was, talking about lots of cool stuff. But these are all things that I typically have in my bag. I do have clients that don't want me to use non-destructive entry just because they're scared that it's going to break. But I always have some picks on me, some shims. Airbag's really fun. Thumb latch tool. I don't know if anybody's seen those, but those are really cool too. Crash bar, under the door tool. Do I have what? But Deviant's webcast actually has, I think, videos of him using them. So I don't like to pick locks on site, but I will. The biggest reason is my very first physical, that's all I thought people do, is just go in and just pick every lock they can find. And of course I got caught because I was a dumbass and I learned my lesson. But the only time I pick locks is if the risk is worth it. So when I was at a hospital, they had a couple of conference rooms like in their basement, and one of the signs on the basement conference room door said, "Financial audit in progress. Please do not touch papers." And you look in there and you just see papers everywhere. And I wanted those papers so bad. So nobody was around. So in that moment, it made sense to pick the lock and to get in and get all those papers, which were really cool. All right, theft is my absolute favorite thing to do during physicals. It is the most tangible thing that you can get. I like to take laptops. That's probably one of my favorites. A lot of times people don't secure them to their desks. Phones, files, building keys, and if you can take badges, that's pretty cool too, because you don't have to actually do the work to clone them. You actually have a badge. But it's very important to note, not leave the building with this stuff. The last thing you want to do is to leave a bunch of your clients' laptops in your car, and for some reason your car gets jacked. Right, that's not good. So before I even go on site, I work out with my client a drop-off location. So if I do take stuff, where does he want me to leave them at his site so I'm not taking them with me? After-hours access. It's important to go in... Thank you. I have kids. Has anyone seen the Lego movie? Yeah, you gotta rub your butt on everything. It's important to test in the daytime and the nighttime, just because, you're testing a different group of people. Some buildings, they just won't have any people at night, so you want to make sure their security guards are paying attention. So I like to go back at night as too. And then if I do get on night, you're gotta be more careful. It's because cameras monitoring and whatnot. But again, I'll do my same goals I do in the daytime. I just try to do them at night. All right, going into my risk chart. So I typically do at least 5 visits when I'm doing a physical security assessment. The first 2 are recon. So I'll go in the daytime, and I'll go in the evening. And then when I do my other 3 visits, that's when I'm actually trying to do my attacks, those things that I just went over. I'll start with my lows, because I don't want to get caught right away. So I'll try to tailgate piggyback, see what information is laying around, document management, and I'll drop USBs around. So those are all things, if I get caught doing that, I can talk my way out. I'm not too worried. Medium is my next visit. So I'll try to actually get onto the network, talk to employees, get information from them, and actually print out the badge and try to use the badge to gain entry. And then my last visit is I'm doing the risky stuff. So if I get caught doing this stuff, my cover's blown. It doesn't make sense to start with the high, because then you can't go back later. And then another important thing to note is this is kind of talking to one person going out and doing the physical security assessment. We try to have at least 2, That way, if someone's cover does get blown, we have a backup person so we can kind of keep assessing the situation. If for some reason we do have one person on site, like JC was one person in the last couple, we do have comms we use. You know, once he goes out and does recon, he's like, hey, I'm leaving to do recon. He kind of checks in, gives us an overview, and tells us when he's back. That way, we know where everyone is at all times. And then some tips and tricks. Bathrooms are your friend. So I was able to get on site at one of my client locations right before they closed. And there was only a handful of employees left, but I wanted them all to leave because I was trying to get into a specific office, and I knew there were some employees surrounding it. So I just went and hung out in the bathroom for like 45 minutes, which kind of got boring, but I just got on Twitter and shit posted. But it worked. Once everyone left, there was no one around. All I had to do was just hang out for a little bit, right? So bathrooms are your friend. I kind of talked about this a little bit. Get out of jail free card, again, should stay in Monopoly. It's gimmicky, it's corny, it's not going to work. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of other security companies saying they do the fake get out of jail free card. Has anyone heard that? So I've heard of consultants actually making a fake one and like putting out like a point of contacts or fake names to actually test, if they get caught, test the security guard to see if they're going to call and verify. Which kind of sounds cool until they call and they're like, I don't know who this person is, or this doesn't make sense. Oh, no, here's the real one. Why are they going to trust you now? You're just burning their trust, and it doesn't make sense. So what we like to do is we just print out the whole statement of work, and we make sure in the statement of work, the scope is very specific. It lists out everything we're going to do. If we're going to do after-hours access, you want to put that down. The last thing you want is to show up at like midnight and give a security guard a heart attack, but that's not in scope, right? That you're going to be there during those hours. So the more detailed in that document, and if you do get caught, they know exactly what you're doing. It makes more sense. Out of order. So we have a bunch of out of order signs that we just print out and keep with us whenever we go on site. And we'll bring in like fake like trash bins, put them right next to a shredder, and tape out of order right over their shredder. So a lot of times they'll put their important documents in that, and we can go and collect it when we go back at night. So that's pretty fun. Spill coffee. So we have a handful of fake resumes too that we keep. And we spill coffee and we make it look dirty. So when we go to the reception desk, we explain we have an interview, and we actually have the coffee, or the resume that looks all dirty. Say, hey, I just need a fresh copy of my resume. Do you mind printing it out? And they always say yeah. They always feel bad for you. They want to help. All right, so that's kind of all the attacks and some tips and tricks. Kind of going into training. Teachable moments is one of my favorite ways to train employees against physical attacks. But with it, it's kind of tricky because if you are doing multiple sites and you run into an employee in a situation, you can't say it right away. You kind of have to wait and go back, if that makes sense. You don't want to kind of blow your cover. So what I like to do is I like to do my assessment, and I'll go back the next day and find those employees and talk with them. So that is one of the biggest ways people learn. And then on-site security awareness training. I am completely against computer-based training. It's so boring, it's distracting, nobody pays attention. Half the time it's like a cartoon on YouTube, and they're not relevant. So what we like to do is actually have security awareness training done on site. So we'll do all of our assessments, and we like to wrap them into the training. So not just like watch out for tailgaters. No, here's a video of your actual building and us tailgating in. It makes it much more realistic and opens your eyes a lot more. All right, and then recap. So we talked about OSINT, different things that I look for before I go on site. Pretext development, about vendors, making sure you have the dress code, you feel confident, password or pretext reuse isn't always necessarily good. Recon, the different areas I like to do recon and what I look for, and then the handful of attacks. Again, not just going out and plugging in something into the network and leaving and saying you did a physical pen test. You're just going to be left with a pen test report. That's not a physical security assessment. And then wrapping it all up with training. And, sorry guys, I talk fast and I have a cough, so it's a really bad combination. But I really appreciate you guys being here. If you would like a copy of my slide deck, please feel free to email me. My contact information's up here. But thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. I think I have time for some questions. I also have some business cards up here as well. But if anyone has questions. Yes?
So, whenever you get to a point, if you say you go in after hours and you kind of get like semi-burned by security guards and security documents, etc., is that a point that you usually leave, or have you ever encountered security guards that like actually okay with these documents?
That's a good question. So his question was if I go in, like for an example, after hours and I get burned and the security guard catches me, do I continue with the test or do I kind of stop after he verifies me? That's your question, right? It kind of depends on the client. Sometimes I'll have clients say, once you get caught, stop, you're done. If they don't really say, and he does catch me, that definitely goes in my report. You know, this person caught me at this time. And I'll still try to continue on, and I'll just document what I find at that point. But it'll be more of, if I didn't get caught, here's what I would find. But a lot of that goes into prior scoping with the client. But that's a good question. Thank you. Yes?
So I had a question on exactly that, scoping.
Yep.
Just a really general question. You mentioned having a good statement of work on
Yep.
you, when you're doing the work, to make sure that you really try to keep yourself as covered as possible.
Right.
So how do you go about scoping your communication with the client? Really, how much do you describe the scenario?
Great question. So the question was, with statement of work and scoping, how do I work that out ahead of time with clients to make sure it all goes into that document? Before we even send over the statement of work, we have questionnaires that we build out. So I'll have every attack that we can do in a description, and then I'll have the client check, yes, I want that, or no, I don't. So when I take that information, that's kind of what builds our scope or our rules of engagement. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
It seems like it would be the open blind spots, right?
What?
Having blind spots, right? Because they're making decisions.
That's true.
So what part of the infrastructure you're testing now?
Yeah, no, that does. And we'll have like places like if there is off-limit areas or if it's the whole building in general. But if we get more into red teaming, then we'll have, you know, a broader scope, but it's not specific, so it kind of lets us have a lot more wiggle room. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you justify the client if you can get a correlation continue testing?
That's hard. The question was, how do you justify to a client if you get caught, continue testing? Pretty much, I'm out there, I'm spending my time. I mean, if they want to see what other information I can find, then it makes sense for them. Just from a testing point of view, right? Just what else could I do? Yep, exactly. And I have had clients that if I get burned, they'll say, okay, well, or what was it? I don't remember. Or if I did get burned, they'll let us come out and do it again with another person. But yeah, justifying it, it's hard, and it depends on the client too. Yeah. Yes.
Is there any advantage to the security staff that can go target actually?
Is there any advantage to the security staff being there? I would say no. As little as people can know about this, the better, because that makes it more realistic. Really, other than my point of contact, I would love it if nobody knew about it. That way they're getting real responses, and you can kind of see who talks to who and see their communication flow. Any other questions? All right, cool, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it.